Derrick, I'm cheesing because I've been waiting we waiting all week for Sunday night. I've been waiting all show to talk
Yes,
about
sir.
Dynasty Fantasy Football. Now, I think it's important to talk about this discussion in a very specific, niche way that only matters to us, right? Why don't we let these people know what's going on in our lives? So I'm going to be interviewing you about your foray into Dynasty. Now, we
Oh yeah.
created last season a very unique dynasty league that is different from this new one that you joined. So I think I make this distinction right off the top. The league that we created for the OTS league is a best ball league. Now, what that means is that you are not setting a lineup every week. Now, you could argue this might be the finesse that really stirs the drink for fantasy, right? Being
Yeah.
that guy that sets a lineup. So I know it was a different change of pace for me. This is the only league that I'm in that is best ball, but I love it because it's a different concept. It changes the way you think about things, the way you play your cards. So I got to ask you, man, now that we finished our first season, before we even talk about the rookie draft for the OTS league, I just
Mm-hmm.
want to ask you, how did you feel about the experience from starting at the startup to throughout the season? If I'm not mistaken, you made the playoffs, right?
I don't even remember, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
So
That
just tell me
yeah.
about your experience in your first season as an owner before the rookie draft, because I think that is really the real intro to what this is. If you don't mind.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was is very intriguing because there were weeks and last year I was getting ready for the wedding and all that stuff. So I didn't even get a chance to really focus on fantasy as much as I wanted to. The idea that I did not have to set my lineup saved me so many weeks, bro. Like so many weeks. Because there were times where I was like, oh snap, like it's already 1:30, 1:45. I didn't even set my lineup. And I go and look and it's like everybody is okay. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. I forgot this was that.
Mhm.
So I like that, I think actually did wonders for me. Just based on the ability. I didn't have any time to actually pay attention too much to my team.
Mhm.
But that was fun. That was fun. And I think that was a good introduction into it because it is a different pace.
Mhm.
Usually I'm when fantasy comes into play, I'm what Thursday night starting to, I'm looking at my lineups. I'm looking at my lineups all week long for the most
Mhm.
part. But Wednesday, Thursday are my days where I'm really looking to make sure that the guys I want in play are going to be in play. If I need to go ahead and claim somebody off a waiver wire or whatever, like
Mhm.
I make those claims ahead of time so that rolling into Sunday I'm okay. Depending on injuries or whatever. But no, I loved it. This is a great change of pace, and it
Mhm.
got me hyped up because I ain't gonna lie, man. I didn't realize we had a draft until until it was going on. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh snap. Okay. Yeah, let me get into this. I like this. I like this. And like you have to really rush because you're kind of like taking your time to look through the picks and everything. I think we had like what a 2 hour limit
Mhm.
per pick. So that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. Able to kind of like look and see what's what. And yeah, I'm enjoying it now significantly more than I thought I would. I'll
Nice.
put it like that.
And I think going through the full cycle, right, of having the startup draft and then having the season, right, you get to see how your picks panned out, where
Mhm.
these guys end up performing relative to what you expected, but
Yeah.
also understanding too that what makes this so fun for me at least is you're building this team the same way an NFL team would, right? You got to
Right.
consider these guys' timelines. You can't have a Christian McCaffrey led backfield if you're not trying to win this year, right? You need
Yeah.
to have guys that are going to put you in a position to be successful at what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And then if you're trying to rebuild too, you gotta make the nudge to make that happen, right? You ultimately, if you want to have a good pick, you can't be the best team in the league, right? So you got to
Yeah.
put yourself in a position that hey, sometimes maybe I got to come off of these guys that are older because they
Mm.
don't fit the timeline of my team, right? So it changes the way you look at fantasy, because obviously these guys are sticking with you. You don't get the luxury of redrafting again at the end of the season.
Right.
So there's a lot of, and I think for me at least, I don't know if you agree, especially looking forward to these seasons rookies. Like I'm tapped in on the rookies. Like I know these
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
before we're even talking about draft time, just because you need to be aware of what's coming on the horizon, so to speak. So I got to ask, obviously, because things got relevant between you and I
Yeah.
think the discussion of contender and um, rebuilder is an interesting one, because I think both of us are looking to contend. And
Yeah.
I'm going to be frank here. I think what I did last season, which put me in a position where I didn't, I made the playoffs, but I was one of the lower seeds. I got knocked off early.
Hmm.
And it put me in a position where when I drafted, I honestly thought I wasn't even going to really be a contender, because I ended up drafting a lot more quarterbacks than any other team. The way I looked at
Yeah.
my draft, at least, is I found keystone players at each position, right? I got Justin Jefferson. I got a lot of big name, got Jonathan Taylor, right? Guys that I
Right.
know are going to be my keystone player for that position. But then in the middle rounds, I was noticing, and I think this might be a lot of guys, just me being frank, used to um, leagues where you're drafting every year, right? Used to
Yeah.
leagues
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
maybe it's one QB, right? This is a 2 quarterback league. This is a super flex league. So quarterbacks are a premium, right?
Yeah.
And when I saw these guys falling, I'm like, you know what? I cannot possibly start these guys
Right.
if this was a standard league. But because this is a super flex best ball league,
Hmm.
why not have 5 quarterbacks on my roster?
Right.
And whichever one of those guys performs the best are going to be the only ones on my roster anyway.
Hmm.
So, and I looked at this way. I said, I'm probably not going to win the first year coming out, but somebody's going to need a quarterback next year.
Yeah.
And that's where my guy Derrick came in. So
Yes, sir.
I got to talk to you about this, because obviously we were super hyped. I'm not going to lie. There was some picks that didn't make no fucking sense in the first round. I try
Yeah.
to help these people out. Shout
Yes.
out.
Yes.
I
Yes.
try to say, hey, are you sure that's what you want? Because if you want something else, I could give
Yeah.
it to you.
Yeah.
They didn't get an answer. So I say, you know what? This fourth rounder, this typically a fourth rounder, just got picked in the first. It's probably going to force you to be a rebuilding team next season.
Yes.
But you know what? That's shifted back to draft. So I'm like, you know what? If there's any way I could move up, let me reach out to Derrick. You needed a quarterback. So talk me through that process, right? I know
Yeah.
we were negotiating for a while. But it ended up being completely different what we discussed versus the actual trade we made. So
Yeah.
talk to me through that process, what it was like for you wheeling and dealing. And I'm sure you were making deals with other people too as we went along.
I can't. That's the thing. I can't get anybody else to do anything with deals. My thought process going into this trade conversation was last year. Even though I knew when the draft was, I think I was busy with something, and I think it was like right in the middle of me moving. That's what it was, and so I could not draft. So my picks were auto picks. So I'm looking at my team. I'm like, I can't trust Tua, man. I can't trust Tua. I need a QB that um I'm going to be able to come in and beginning of this year. I'm going to be able to look at it and be like, there's a possibility we can go deep into the playoffs. And that's when you hit me about a trade, one of my first round pick. And I looked at your roster. I'm like, man, I need a QB. Let me get JJ McCarthy off your hands. And that was the beginning of the conversation. It did our trade definitely shifted from what we were initially discussing. But I think that it was interesting because I forgot who said this, right? And it wasn't even about fantasy. It's just about the art of negotiation, right? They said that both parties are supposed to walk away feeling like, dang, man, I just got.
Mhm.
But I also got what I wanted, right? Both people should be walking away feeling something similar to that. And that's how I was approaching our negotiation with this. I was like, okay, I need something and he needs something. So let's figure out what we can do to where neither one of us are getting screwed in this move. And I think we did that. To be honest
Mhm.
with you, I think that was a great trade. I enjoyed it. So why don't you tell everybody what the trade actually became?
Yes, sir. So I think it's important and relevant to discuss our rosters a little bit too. So I'm just gonna pull this up as we talk, just so I could give some context. But as far as my team, as my leading men, as far as my quarterback room, I got real lucky on hitting on Jaden Daniels. Right? I think he might have. I don't even think he was the first quarterback I picked. But I got really lucky on hitting on him. So that is my cornerstone QB1. Right? I don't even need to consider who my QB2 is. I'm good. I have production every week. That's typically the place you see. If I'm being honest, in most dynasty leagues, it's very rare to see any team with more than two quarterbacks because for the most part, there's all of us need to start two. So it's very hard to
Yeah.
have a viable situation where you have more than three. I also got lucky in the fact that I went the rebuild route, right? I looked at it like, hey, I'm not going to be able to contend. So let me look forward to the future here and drafted Drake May as well out of that same class,
Oh
right? So
yeah,
I
that's
got Drake
great.
May, I
Yeah.
got Jaden Daniels, so I'm looking forward to that. And then the guy that was my producer, right, was Anthony Richardson. So these are the guys that got me through last season.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm looking into this season, I had JJ McCarthy also sitting on the bench, right? Three guys in that same draft. Uh,
Yeah.
but as I'm looking at that pick, I'm like, you know what? It was great to have him and look forward to what he can be, right? Like I feel like all year last year, I'm like, you know what? This sucks that we're not quite there, but JJ is going to be big time
Yeah.
for us. Like any quarterback that is attached to Justin Jefferson is huge, especially because I have Justin Jefferson. So I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
great spot to be in. But then honestly, when I was looking at the upside, right, and this is a fantasy discussion purely. I think between Drake May and Jaden Daniels' timelines in the league, I just felt like I could not come off those guys for anything. Like I was like, you know what? These guys, we've at least seen them produce. And with all due respect, we hoping for a lot with JJ. I think the fact that
Yeah.
the Vikings were so easy and willing to let Sam Darnold walk speaks to this.
Right.
At the same time, we still haven't seen this guy. So I was a little wary because of that too. And I'm like, you know what? Even more so, I don't think I could have traded you Anthony Richardson in this trade.
Right.
You were not going to take that cornerstone piece because, hey, he could potentially end up being someone that isn't even a starter next year.
Right.
But in fantasy specifically, I like this because I'm like, you know what? I have the upside swing of Anthony Richardson. If
Hmm.
he is playing and he is starting, he's probably going to be a top 10 producer at the quarterback position just because
Right.
of what he brings to the table with the rushing aspect of it.
Hmm.
So why not just look at it as this is my home run shot? He's my bench QB anyway,
Yeah.
and give you the more sure guy, the more polished quarterback that's gonna have. You gotta imagine he has this job for at least the next 3 years.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and on top of that, I looked around the landscape. I also was extremely deep at wide receiver, but extremely shallow at running back.
Yeah.
So the more we discuss this too, I'm gonna be real in dynasty in general, wide receiver is the premium position, if you ask me, because
Hmm.
especially when you get a young guy like a Malik Neighbors that came out last season,
Hmm.
you are signing up for the next 10 years plus sometimes of this guy's production. And that
Right.
is such a big game changing difference on your team that honestly, I didn't want to come off of a wide receiver.
Yeah.
So I think that speaks to your negotiation skills as well. I say, you know what? If you're gonna make this hard on me, Derrick, let me shore up my running back room because the pick that I wanted, I saw Mario Hampton still on the board. I
Yeah.
saw Travion Henderson still on the board. I'm like, if I could get your pick and put myself in a position to get two running backs,
Hmm.
why not make that happen? Because I think my running backs suck right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I was like, you know what? While we're at it, since you want the running back, why don't you give me CMC on the top and we could close this thing? And we were able to make it get done. I agree with you. Like you said, it was hard for me to let go of Drake, man. I was like,
Yeah.
I really want this guy. But I think you targeted the right guy in my wide receiver room too. Like if you
Yeah.
even tried to discuss JSN or I'm like, no, this isn't
Because I
happening.
thought about him too, but I was like, he's not going to come off him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
think it also speaks to our like us knowing each other too. We kind of knew how to approach it as well. So I think it's interesting in that way too.
yeah, and the funny thing is when I have trade discussions, usually they're like 3 days minimum, maybe a week. Like sometimes there's one league in particular that there's one guy that every year he and I have a conversation on a trade. And a lot of times it takes about 3 or 4 weeks for us to actually pull the trigger on something because I'm sitting here thinking about something. The very first trade he and I did, I will never forget. Travis Kelsey was not producing for me. And I had Mahomes. So I'm like, it's a handcuff. I'm like, I need this to work, but it wasn't working. And I wanted the championship so bad. But I'm like, this isn't working. And I think we were in like week 8, week 9, somewhere in that range. And so I was like, you know what? No, we were in week 7. I said, bump it. I'm gonna go ahead, make this trade because it's not working this year. Swear to God, bro. That week on, Kelsey was killing it, man. He was killing it. I mean, it was like 20 points per game type of thing. He went on a crazy run. I'm like, I'm pissed because now every time I'm thinking about this trade, I'm like, man, I got. And sure enough, I think he won the championship that year. So for me, it's like every time I go into a discussion, I'm like, all right, what is needed? Like, do I need to make a trade right now? And as much as I did not want to trade McCaffrey, my whole thought process was I got Bucky Irving on my team. My wide receivers are absolutely crazy. I got McConkey, I got Higgins, I got Devontae Smith. So the way I'm thinking about it, it's not like I couldn't move on from CMC and live.
Mhm.
Right. So that was my whole thought process. I know like last year we talked about that too, with specifically CMC with another trade.
Mhm.
And I was forecasting, yeah, I love him, but at the same time, my thought process was again, like you talk about longevity. Like I could draft a running back and be okay in this dynasty. And I think that it worked out for both of us for sure.
Mhm.
For sure, for the here and the future.
Mhm.
Like that's what I liked about it. That was that was a good trade because we both got felt like we got.
Exactly, exactly. So when I was looking at the trade initially, I didn't even really look at it that way as to say like we both got robbed. Like for
Hmm.
me, I knew I was so eager to make a move at the running back slot and the way the draft fell. Like I'm gonna be transparent. If the draft didn't fall the way it did, I probably wouldn't have been willing to make that deal because
Yeah.
I wouldn't have saw the potential to make that move. Like even though I like a lot of the receivers in this class as well, I still think the running backs fit what I needed, right? To
Right.
fill
Right.
those gaps. So I thought in that way it was a uniquely even trade because in my head we both equally needed to get it done as much, which probably also speaks to how quickly we got it done compared to other negotiations because
Yeah.
we both had to have it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And tell let everybody know like how your draft went, like
Mhm.
who you picked with these picks in this draft.
Yes. So let me pull that up so that we can have transparency. And then also I think it's only right that we give out our teams because I think we
Yeah.
we
Yeah. Yeah.
we
Yeah.
discussed the
Yeah.
trade, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So let's go to team here. So my first pick, obviously I had back to back, I think it was 6 and 7, right?
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
I went Omarion Hampton with 6, which was crazy. And then I went Travion Henderson with my next pick, and then later on, for with my second rounder, I had the luxury to sort of re-roll, right? So I just gave up McCarthy. I say, you know what? He's still here somehow. And even like, in all honesty, if the draft didn't play out the way it was, and I ended up with Shador Sanders in this spot, I would have been over the moon, right? Because I
Yeah.
got my second shot at the potential actual rookie starter this season in my
Mhm.
eyes. So the fact that Jackson Dart was still there, although I didn't like Jackson Dart as my second quarterback necessarily, Cole did. So shout out to Cole. That was his
Yeah.
second, even before the draft. And then it all
Yeah.
played out that he ended up being the second quarterback off the board too. So the fact that he was still there with my second pick, so what was that, 2-6? I was like, no, I had to go Jackson Dart at that spot and then give myself a chance to sort of re-roll at the position. Hopefully he becomes a productive guy for me down the line. And then my final draft pick, another guy that I was surprised fell to me because if I'm not mistaken, I had to trade up um, to get Jackson Dart. So I ended up having to give away one of my third rounders because I had two initially. So because of that, I ended up with my final pick getting somebody who I'm actually really high on in his landing spot, Kyle Williams, the New England wide receiver. So I thought I got a pretty well-rounded draft, right? Got two running backs at the top of the board, a QB that I don't have to worry about being productive for me this year. I could just hope it's just a dice throw. Like that's the way I look at it. And I think best ball is the perfect place to do that. And I would encourage you all to look at your rosters, right? And say, hey, I've got a stacked running back room, but a guy like maybe a Blake Corum who got drafted last year for the Rams is on the free agency slot. Why not pick that guy up and sort of have somebody on the team that, hey, I don't expect him to do anything, but he could hit for me. And if he does, that's somebody that could start for you, right? And that's huge, right? Getting starter production out of a guy you didn't expect to get is huge. And I think that factors into the trade too. Before you tell us your team and your draft picks, um, I think it factored into our trade too because CMC didn't produce for you last year. So you were like, all your value in your mind that I saw in CMC is already gone for you. Like he is already at a deficit on your team. So you're like, you know what?
Yeah.
If I could look at you, if you think this guy's valuable, then let's throw him in there. I'm sure that's probably how you felt.
That's exactly how I felt because I was sitting here hurting last year, man. I like not just this league. There was I think I had one other league um where McCaffrey was my first pick. And that's what messed me up about the whole thing was that I really wanted him to work out from a fantasy perspective, but I wasn't going to take a role on that. Again, I wasn't going to make that bet. So I wanted to move off him anyway. So it was good that happened. I ended up picking my first pick became in the second round. So I was able to get RJ Harvey,
Which at
who
that spot, phenomenal. Gotta say,
yeah,
at that
I
spot.
like he was who I was going for as well, but I didn't know that I was going to be able to get him either. So, yeah, the draft did play out in a very weird way cuz that there were guys falling that I didn't expect to be there.
Mhm.
So, um yeah, and there was oh man, you picked up who was your second round pick?
Travion, my second pick was Travion Henderson. My second rounder,
Yeah, you had a second rounder, right?
it was Jackson Dart. No, yeah, I
It was
moved
Jack.
up to
Who
get
was the
Jackson
third
Dart.
round that you got?
Um, Kyle Williams
Yes, because
from New
that was who
England.
I was
Yep.
looking into getting in that round, and you picked him right before me.
Oh man, sorry.
Yeah, that one hurt.
Because the fact that he fell to that spot, I'm sure you
Yeah,
were like, nah, I gotta have it. Yeah.
I was going for him too, but yeah, I ended up getting RJ Harvey. Let's see, I picked up Devin Neal in the third round, and then the fourth round I got Terrence Ferguson.
Mhm.
So I felt like I got good value because I was actually, and I'm gonna tell you right now because I don't think he watches the show. I have a trade request in
Mhm.
for to Matt.
Nice.
I'm trying to give him was it Darnell Mooney for dang, who was it I was trying to get? I'm trying to get
Shout out to Matt too.
Who's
Just
a tight
recently
end?
graduated again, got his master's,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So shout
yeah.
out to Matt. We love a good Matt cameo on the sideline, guys.
Yes. Oh, Loveland. I'm trying to
Colson
I'm
Loveland. Yep.
trying to trade Mooney for Loveland,
Nice.
and I don't know that he's gonna. I don't even know if he didn't even read my text message. I don't even think so. I'm hoping, between the after the celebration and time with the girlfriend and stuff like that, he'll look at the phone. He'll yeah, let me go ahead and help my guy out because I
So
have
are you trying to fleece Matt? Because
low key.
Darnell Mooney? Hold on.
Well, so let me let me explain though.
Okay, okay,
Let me
okay.
explain because he's got CeeDee Lamb, he's got Neighbors, right? He's got Waddle, so his receivers are good. But my thought process is because he could always use another receiver.
Yep.
I'm assuming he's going. That's value for the pick. That's
What
how
is
I'm
his
looking at
tight end room? What is his tight end room looking like?
it. He's got McBride,
Oh
Trey
yeah.
McBride, and obviously Loveland, Cole Komet. So that's
Yeah.
what I'm thinking. Like, why not? Like, I'm trying to give you the way I'm looking at it is I'm giving you Mooney for a second round pick.
Yep. And I
So
think it's interesting too because
that was who I wanted.
on face value, tight ends are worth less than wide receivers.
Right.
But I will say, and this is me just being honest, I don't think anybody gets that deal done unless you throw like a pick in there or something like
Well,
that.
see,
There
that's
has
the
to be
thing.
something.
That's the thing. I'm trying to clear up space on my roster.
Mhm.
So I'm okay with giving another pick if that's what he wanted. But the way I'm thinking about it is I don't think he's really paying attention to the league. So why not get another player that I wanted Loveland anyway. Like I
Exactly.
wanted
Yeah.
to pair
So
him
it
with
was between
Bowers.
RJ and Loveland for you,
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah. I wanted to pair him with Bowers. So it's like, why not have that kind of tight end room if you can? You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? Why not?
Yep.
So let's run through our rosters real quick before we get on up out of here because I know
We're in
everybody
a
is
good spot.
very
We're in a good
intrigued.
spot. We're in a real good spot to
Yes,
contend. I think both of us. I'm not gonna lie to you though, Derek, and this is me just being transparent. This is the best dynasty team I ever had. Like
I'm
going
sure
into
it
a
is.
season, my
I'm sure it
second
is.
best was the year that I had, and listen to this because it's fucking so funny in retrospect. The year that I had Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, Nick Chubb, Justin Jefferson, and all of those guys got injured that year, like literally all in the
Oh
same year.
man,
So I just
yeah.
got destroyed. So that was the second best team. This team is clearly the best, if you ask me. I've got Jaden Daniels as my starting quarterback.
Who you wouldn't trade me?
Yeah, who was untouchable. He tried, and it was funny because as soon as he mentioned him, I'm like, oh, Rich, coming from an Eagles fan,
Yeah.
this is who you want, right? This is the first pick for you.
Hey, look, I
But
could
yeah, it
not
makes
care less.
sense. You got to check if they're available.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he was not. My QB2 is Drake May, QB3 Anthony Richardson, and now QB4 Jackson Dart. My QB5, which it's always good to have one of these guys, is the ultimate example of what I meant with the dart throws earlier. We got Kirk Cousins still on the roster because guess
Yeah.
what? At some point, Atlanta's going to get off of him, right?
Yeah.
At some point, somebody's going to pick him up and look at him as someone that's going to start for them. So, as soon as that happens, right? If you're in this scenario, you sell this guy. This is
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
somebody you keep because you weren't expecting to do anything for you anyway. So,
Yeah.
good example of what we talked about earlier. And then our running backs, we've got Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Amarion Hampton, Travion Henderson, and then down the line we also have those are the only running backs I have stacked if you ask me. And I love the fact that we got two starters, but then also we got the three flex spots. So
Right.
I look at it like now I'm sort of equally deep at running back and wide receiver, so that if either of these guys pop off, I'm going to be in a situation where these scores still end up on my team, even if I'm conventionally more deep than others, right? Like you could argue with the quarterbacks I had last season, if I kept JJ, I might be in a scenario where three of my most productive guys on my roster are quarterbacks, and now
Right.
I'm not getting one of those scores,
Right.
So
Right.
that was another part that made the trade for me. Our wide receiver room, we finish it off. We have Justin Jefferson, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. DJ Moore, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jamison Williams, and Kyle Williams and Tyler Lockett.
Mm,
These last three guys, particularly, I love that Tyler Lockett is my last option because I still think he could be a productive receiver for Cam Ward.
yeah,
And then obviously Kyle Williams, upswing pick that I think he's going to grow with that team too. And I like Jamison Williams, in my opinion, in best ball is 10 times of a better player because
yeah,
you don't have to worry about the weeks that he has two catches because he's not going to be on your roster.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
going to
yeah.
be on your bench. So you don't have to factor that into the weeks that he has 40 that he's starting for you. You're going to be
Mhm.
excited he was on your team. So um, finally, the tight ends, we got Pat Fryer Muth and Evan Ingram. If you ask, oh, and as well as Tucker Craft, if I'm being realistic, my tight end room is pretty trash. I'm
Yeah,
hoping that Evan Ingram hits for me this year
yeah,
with the new landing spot in Denver, but I won't be surprised that that is my least productive unit. But I also tend to just not value tight end as much as other people,
mm,
unless it's like a tight end premium, just because, and this league isn't just because obviously wide receivers on the whole for the most part, unless you're a top five receiver, I mean tight end like Brock Bowers is, you're probably not going to get it nowhere near the receptions as a wide receiver two even
yeah, yeah.
in most weeks. So obviously it's good to have a productive guy at that spot though. So I'm feeling amazing about my team. Derek, what's your team looking like?
Yes, sir. At quarterback, I have JJ McCarthy and Tua uh, as well. Like I'm trying to move off Tua. I ain't gonna lie to you, man. I'm really trying to move off of him. I'm literally giving like I have him in two trades right now, 4 picks. Um, just one pick. I'm just trying to see what I can get for him. So that's my QB room. Running backs. I got Bruce Irving, James Conner. Let me see. I got Chuba Hubbard. I've got RJ Harvey. Um, and Ramondre Stevenson. Oh,
Mhm.
then I also have Rico Dowdle and Devin Neal. So running backs, that's going to be that. I think my running back room is pretty good. My receivers, of course, I got Drake London from you, Lab McConkey. I have T. Higgins, Devontae Smith, Garrett Wilson. We have Jordan Addison, Chris Olave, Darnell Mooney, who I am trying to move for a pick. And that is it for the receivers. For tight end, we have Bruce Bowers and Hunter Henry, as well as Terrence Ferguson.
Nice.
So
Not an
yeah,
upside.
I think both of our teams are pretty nice. Like I think they're pretty nice because again, I don't feel like either one of us like didn't get what we wanted in our trade, but I don't
Mhm.
think that we necessarily got away with like thievery either. I think we both
Mhm.
filled the needs that we needed on our teams respectfully and got that deal done with a quickness. So yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I think both of us have different areas we could grow in too, right? Like my tight
Mhm.
end room compared to yours, you're absolutely cooking me. But then also you consider the future, right? I would say me personally, like you said, you're already worried about Tua. You're already in a position where even if you wanted to get a first round pick, if you do end up getting a first round pick for Tua, then you're in a spot where you have to rebuild. Like you can't
Mhm.
even consider, hey, I'm going to be a contender this year because that's so much of a big part of your production that now you're cycling to next season.
So I have a
You still
plan in
have
mind.
your first pick though, right? You still have your first pick.
Yeah, that's the
So
pick that I'm like if I can get another first rounder for Tua, great. So I can have two first round picks to play with next year and see what that does. But I actually have a plan of action if I'm able to move off Tua.
yeah,
So I'm not trying to not contend this year.
I love
That's
that. I love
that's
that.
that's the whole route.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So good luck. I hope that you're able to make some deals because I know that's sometimes that's the hardest part, right? So
Yeah.
you get inactive people, and then sometimes you're trying to reach out to make deals, and you just never hear back, or they don't want to Yeah, they're not in this thinking in the same direction as you, right?
Yeah,
Like that's a
yeah,
big part of it too. I've been trying to make a deal in our other league, and I think we're going to finish with this discussion too, because I
mm,
think it's really cool that we had this OTS league flourishing, and then you ended up hopping in on my other family league too. So I'm hyped. We got you on both ends of the dynasty spectrum, so we'll get to discuss that a little bit too. But I think for this one, like all things considered, I need to find a position to move on a tight end. And then we also need to wait and see on what hits, right? Because you could end up in a place where, let's say Tua has a baller first 3 weeks. Now you might be able to trade him into a quarterback and a pick, right? So these are
yeah,
all
yeah,
things that are fluid that change throughout the season. That's another thing I'm going to look at too. Like I feel like I'm also weaker at wide receiver because I lost London, and I need guys that maybe had career years to match that this year. That's asking a
right,
lot, right? So
right,
I
right.
may have to move on a wide receiver depending on if my running backs hit the way I think they are, right? So
Yeah,
there's a lot of different things that need to work out for us, which is what's so fun about Dynasty. Is a lot of times you look at the teams going in, and you're like, there's no way this team loses. And then
yep,
everyone gets fucking injured, and now you
yep.
have to adapt and overcome. So we're unsure what the dynasty gods have in mind for us, but we are optimistic nonetheless.
Hey, look, we can always talk about a receiver for QB.
Yep. We got time to make that discussion for
We got
sure.
time.
So
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yep.
So if you want to pass Drake May over, I can throw you over a receiver if you want.
Hey, we'll definitely discuss that. But hey, good luck trying to send me a trade request for somebody like motherfucking. I gotta say, if Mooney comes across that screen, I don't know. I'm gonna have some problems. But
Hey,
all jokes aside, I love it. And then I'll quickly wrap up with this because we didn't have a trade in this league. But I gotta say, shout out to you, man. Thank you. Because this is how dynasty leagues die, right? If we
yeah,
have inactive owners, if we have people that are not contributing to what makes this so fun, what makes it a yearly event, then it's tough, right? And I
yeah,
think the funniest part about this situation is this wasn't a willing, like this person did not leave willingly. They left kicking and screaming, and they were kind of upset. But we kind of looked at it like, hey man, like at the end of the day,
not
you're
doing
holding
anything.
us all back, right?
Yeah,
If you're not going to make these moves. But I also want to take the time to say thank you, right? Because this is frankly, right, just me being honest, a very hard ask because not a lot of people are willing to look forward, right, to a dynasty league where, hey, this is my team, but now this is a paid league, right? Our OTS league is not a paid league.
hmm
It's a free league. So
hmm
I just got to say once again, you took on that brunt of saying, "Hey, I'll rebuild with this team that has a lot of pieces, right? You got Lamar Jackson, you got a lot of different names as well that can help you out, but you're not in a position to contend. So I'm glad that you were willing to take the spot and then look forward to the future. I think it's interesting though because you're in a forced rebuild, right? You
Oh
have
yeah,
no
yeah, yeah.
choice of hoping to contend. So I'm excited to see what moves you're able to pull off throughout the season as we look forward to the next couple of seasons. So I got to ask you, right, as you went through that situation as well and came across that draft, how was it different from the last one? Obviously, it's not the same format, right? It's super
Yeah.
flex, but it's tight end premium, right? So
hmm
it's a different look at super flex, but also um, you, it's a different draft in the way that it's not best ball. So it's a
Yeah.
PPR league, and we're setting our lineups every week. So tell me about your thought process and what you ended up coming away with, and how you're feeling about the team.
Ooh, it's hard, bro. That Let me pause. But it's very this one is interesting because of the fact that I didn't I didn't draft this team,
Mhm.
right? So right now, just so everyone knows, I got Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Najee Harris, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Chig Okonkwo. I don't know how to pronounce his last
Yep.
name. Darnell Mooney, Hollywood Brown, Adam Thielen, Aaron Rodgers, Sam Darnold, Sam Howell, Tyrod Taylor, Marshawn Lloyd, Kamani Vidal, Ollie Gordon, Cordell Patterson, Dante Foreman, Brendan Rice, Jaden Higgins, Luther Burden, Curtis Samuel, Matt Collins, Alan Lazard, Hunter Renfro, Jalen Tolbert, Elijah Arroyo. That's that right?
Yep.
And Gerald Everett. So I think there are good pieces there. Here's the problem though. There's a ton of QBs on this roster that ain't gonna do anything.
Yep.
And yeah, there are no moves I can make with him in terms of trades. Like I'm not gonna be
Mhm.
able to trade Tyrod Taylor. So I'm intrigued by the um position of I got to figure this out.
Hmm.
I'm intrigued by the challenge of this one, and I think don't count me out
Hell yeah.
for this year. I'll put it to you like that. I think I could drop some guys and move some pieces to get some, because I got a lot of people trying to get Lamar and Henry. Like I have like 6 or 7 requests for that right now.
Yeah, and I would say no matter what, like, and this is me just being honest. When it comes to Lamar Jackson, there might not be a number that can be paid that is worth it. Like, I'm
I'm
just gonna
not
make that
moving them,
as clear as possible. If
bro.
you're gonna make a counter offer, though, it needs to include a quarterback, it needs to include a wide receiver,
Hmm.
and it needs to include a pick. Like, it needs to be a full acknowledgement of you need to make my roster 10 times better to make me even consider this.
So yeah,
So
one person is trying to give me a Jared Goff. Uh, I guess it was a pick this in the fourth round for this draft, but a first round for next, third for next, and a fourth for next
mhm.
for both Henry and Lamar. And I'm just I gotta
For
sit on this.
Henry and Lamar, yeah, that's
That's
disrespectful. That's disrespectful.
I'm just like he sound
That's
I wouldn't get some
questionable for just Lamar, right?
bro.
Just Lamar, I might be like, I don't know.
That's
So,
my point. So I need all your picks at minimum.
mhm, that's it.
You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. We'll see. I'm gonna work through this, and then I'll give you an update over the next couple of weeks if I have any moves going into the season. We'll definitely discuss that for sure.
Yes, sir. And then, real quick, before we get out of here, I wanted to discuss this too because,
Yeah.
in a similar vein, I had a team that was rebuilding, that I'm in a forced rebuild. So, I also,
Okay.
like you, I have Lamar Jackson. And I
Okay.
also, like you, I just traded for Sam. What the fuck is his name? Darnold. And
Okay.
the way that I got him was I traded a player that I picked in last year's draft with the third rounder, right? Late pick.
Hmm.
I was like, I didn't think this guy would produce for me, but it ended up being Bucky Irving, right? One of the best
Ooh.
players on my team.
Ooh.
So when
Ooh.
you look at the roster, the trade ended up being Bucky Irving for Sam Darnold, Dylan Sampson, and I think it was like a third rounder or something like that.
Okay. Okay.
For and I was only giving up Bucky Irving. And now I needed this because my second quarterback was Aaron Rodgers last year. So now my second
Mm.
quarterback was nobody. So once I was
Mhm.
able to make that move, now I feel in a much better spot with everything else I have going on,
Right. 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 Right.
to try to at least put myself in a position to do something. But honestly, I think after a few weeks, I might turn myself into a rebuilder and trade off some of these productive players in hopes of actually rebuilding, because this was once again the remnants of that team that was a contender, that
Yeah.
just got absolutely decimated by the injury bug. So before we get out of here, how do you feel about that trade for Bucky Irving? Did I maximize the value?
I think so. I think so. Because I mean, like we all believe Bucky is going to be a really, really good player moving forward, but you never know. Like that was my whole thing with McCaffrey last year. First round pick, I mean, my first overall pick in 2 leagues, bro. And you saw how that went down. So yeah, you never know. So honestly, I think that for if you that was what you needed, it makes a ton of sense. Go ahead and move one player, get 3 pieces. Like I think that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty nice. Yeah, yeah,
And especially when you consider what I paid for the player,
yeah.
in my mind, it was a no brainer. But now I got no running backs, so
Yeah.
now I'm in that position I was in with our OTS league, where I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I gotta figure this out quick. So we got
Yeah.
a lot to look forward to in Dynasty. We're gonna keep updating you on our teams and what happens in the future. But this is awesome, man. I
Yes,
can't
sir.
believe that there's so much to talk about in the middle of the off season, right? We are so far away from actual games being played, but god damn it, the world of football is alive and well. So I love it. I love that you're all in on Dynasty too, because it just makes it a something that we love in fantasy football when it's happening and you're actually it's time to score points. It's so exciting. Why not extend the shit so that we got it all year long and we got all
Bro.
these different things to consider throughout the year?
And we'll have to do our rankings going into this year per position. We'll have to do that going in and discussing that. I think that would be a pretty fun thing to do fantasy wise.
Heck yeah. And then we could look back at our rosters and say, hey, how many guys are top 10? Are we
Yeah, yeah,
actually contenders?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
the numbers might say something else to us. So we got a lot to look forward to. So shout out to you guys for tuning in. To the love that we've been getting on the channel recently has been absolutely tangible. We feel you, we see you, we acknowledge you. So thank you so much for all the support you have shown us. And we're really looking forward to continuing to give you all this dope content every single week. So make sure you're following the brand at OTS Media Co. on all social media platforms, OTS Media on YouTube, so you never miss all the dope stuff coming your way. But just like that, we done did it again, Derrick. We done made another banger of a show for you all. And until next week, just remember, right? When you're fucking all in your bag, like, man, I should have made this trade or I should have made this move. You did not let Saquon Barkley go to the motherfucking Eagles and win a title. We'll see y'all next year.